Right everyone, it's Sunday and we're back on the channel with a wee bit of chat ahead of the new week. So no longer intro today, let's just get into it. Yes, as that surprisingly painful intro aimed to highlight, England went out of the World Cup last night with Harry Kane skying a late penalty in a defeat against France. Now, I'm well aware there's a certain percentage, I say small, but a certain percentage nonetheless of you who are maybe English or at least have some sort of leaning towards the English national football team. So I have no intention of alienating you at all. We will move on, no gags here. One thing I would say is that yesterday wasn't the only victory for a French team because, about 12 hours earlier in the day, Celtic were actually playing their own match, albeit in slightly less intense circumstances, against the French top-flight side, Rennes, or Stade Rennais, to give them their Sunday name. These images from French journalist Nicolas Mangard kind of show where we were playing yesterday, effectively a park. We lost 4-3 to Rennes yesterday. Bizarrely, all 7 goals arriving before half-time. Of the Celtic goals, Matt O'Reilly grabbed 2. I think the first one in particular was an absolute belter, but I'm not counting him as being off the mark yet. He has to do it in a competitive game to get his first goal this season. Kyogo getting our other goal yesterday. Big news though was in terms of who actually played. This was the lineup that Ange went with: Joe Hart, Anthony Ralston, Carl Starfelt, Moritz Jens and Greg Taylor at the back. Callum McGregor, Matt O'Reilly and Real Hatate in midfield, Liel Abada on the right, Jota on the left and Kyogo through the middle. By the way, subs, because I know you'll be wondering about them too, we made 11. This is as per the Celtic official website. Siegrist, Ideguchi, Kobayashi, Lawal, Bernabe, Vata, Abelgar, I'm calling him Abelgar now, apparently that's what it is. Turnbull, Hack, Sabanovic, Forrest and Yakimakis. So 11 subs there. Obviously, the big news there is that Callum McGregor was able to start the game and actually play 78 minutes, which I think is a great sign going into the matches we're going to have coming up. And just said, I think last week or the week before, that he was raring to go or something to that effect. So that's great news. In terms of the team for Pittodrie next week, I would say it's probably be pretty similar to this. Carter Vickers potentially back into the fold, ideally back into the fold. It'll just depend, what his conditioning is like, although he has only played one match for the US national team during the World Cup, so he should be all right. I think he would come back in. Apart from that, maybe you could do a wee bit of tinkering up front depending on what we're facing at Pittodrie. But the good news is Celtic are in good shape here, and that was something Ange wanted to highlight as well. Speaking about the week-long training camp in Portugal, he said, overall, it's been a good week in training for us. The boys have worked hard and probably felt the effects of it in today's game at different times. Overall, it's been a positive week. We have got minutes into some players, particularly Callum and Carroll, who haven't played a lot recently. They've all come through it really well. In terms of other Celtic-related news, a couple of relatively big stories that broke on Friday. Number one, we're reportedly interested in Tunisia midfielder Isa Laidouni, last seen featuring at Ibrox on the final day of the 2002-03 season, Chris Sutton, get that one. Actually last seen nutmegging Eduardo Camavinga in the World Cup. You may remember that bit of skill, went pretty viral. You'll be able to find it online by just searching for Laidouni Camavinga. Foot Mercato linking us, Wolfsburg, and a number of English clubs with the midfielder. Now, it seems to me whenever we get linked with these kind of players, Wolfsburg are like almost always included in the report. It's bizarre. They clearly have like the same recruitment staff as us or the same ideas or whatever. But yes, it is yet another North African / Middle Eastern / Asian kind of player. I think that's kind of been the story of our transfer window so far, that obviously doesn't even open for like 3 weeks or something. But in terms of reports, been linked with Egyptian players, Japanese, South Korean, now Tunisian as well. A lot of players who have done well at the World Cup as well. So I think it's encouraging, and I honestly think it's a matter of time before we sign maybe a North African player. He plays for Ferencváros right now, actually played against us twice last season in the Europa League. And the one thing you can maybe say about the Celtic midfield, and I may get pilloried for this, but maybe since Tom Rogic left the club, we've lacked that little bit of magic in the midfield. I know Hatate and O'Reilly and even McGregor are capable of it from time to time, but I think having a real player like Laidini, who based on that one clip against Camavinga has that in his locker, I think could be a really nice addition to that midfield. So as I always say, it's just a report at this stage. Will anything come of it? We will have to wait and see. I'm going to get that on a t-shirt as well. The other bit of news is Yosuke Ideguchi is set to be offered the chance to leave Celtic next month. Clubs in Japan, his homeland, are said to be interested. The writing's kind of been on the wall with this. I think whenever, since he didn't make the Champions League 25-man squad at the start of September, you kind of knew that his time at Celtic was coming to an end. It just hasn't worked out for whatever reason. Injuries have played a part. I think he's trying to get into a tough part of the pitch as well. I think he's very much trying to get into that position where we only have like one available. If you look at someone like Hatate, he can go either of the attacking midfield positions. Maida can play on the left or even up front if needs be, or even on the right at times. I think Ideguchi has been vying for that deeper midfield position, and if you can't get game time while Callum McGregor's been out for over 2 months, then you're going to struggle to get it on his return. We've got Abelgard second half of the season. I think he's going to hopefully become a player, play more minutes for us. Aaron Moy obviously is like the best player in the world as well, so game time is not going to be very likely for Ideguchi, so I think it makes sense for all parties just to kind of say, yeah, this didn't work out, go back to Japan and hopefully, have a great career. Whether that be a loan or a permanent deal, I'm not sure, but I would certainly expect to see movement on that in January. Also, our very own Josip Juranovic is tearing it up at the World Cup with a spectacular performance against Brazil. I don't know about you, but just watching that game, I had a massive smile on my face seeing one of our own players playing at that level. I mean, he was up against Vinicius Jr. and Neymar to an extent, and I think two of the best players in the world at the moment, two of the best at crying as well, but that's besides the point. And Juranovic was immense. They did more running back towards their goal in the first half than they did running towards the Croatian goal. That first half performance was great. He had pace, he had desire, and on the occasions when Vinicius did get a chance to run forward, Juranovic simply outpaced him and took the ball off him. He looked genuinely an elite level fullback during that game in the first half. I think, half-time onwards, he wasn't quite as prominent in the match, but he just didn't put a foot wrong at all. It was a really, really good performance. For me, a real contender to be man of the match. The keeper would probably get it for Croatia, given that he made saves in the shootout as well. But in terms of outfielders, Juranovic was superb. He's into the semi-finals now against Lionel Messi and Argentina on Tuesday night, and he's certainly adding millions to his transfer fee, whether that be for next month, next summer, or beyond. I think people looking at I saw people saying 10, 12 million, which even prior to that performance, even prior to the World Cup, seemed particularly low to me. You're not telling me that he's not at least a 16, 17, 18 million pound player just based on that one performance alone. I'd be hoping for Celtic to get that at least when Juranovic moves on. So yeah, that's our lot for today. That's all I wanted to get off my chest. The good news is that from tomorrow, with the new week beginning, we can properly get into the chat ahead of Aberdeen. And once we return at Pittodrie, we're in it until I think late March, before we get our next international break. Ange doesn't reckon it's going to be quite as difficult period for the team as the first chunk of the season, given that there won't be the same travelling involved. So hopefully we can just really get that momentum going and just win after win after win. Obviously 2 cups are going to be in the equation as well, so it's going to be a really interesting period, even though we've not got any European football to concern ourselves with. We do have new signings though, and we'll be speaking to Celtic's latest signing, Alistair Johnson, tomorrow. We'll bring you that video at some stage, probably on Tuesday, with another bit of chat as well. So keep an eye out for that. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we're not far from Celtic being back, so take some joy in that.